Hello and welcome back to Like Maria. Today I'm going to talk to you about Imtiaz Dharker's poem, A Century Later. This is part of the new AQA cluster Worlds and Lives. But even if you're not studying GCSE, it's a great poem, so come along for the journey. I'm going to talk about this poem in 3 sections. I'm going to talk about the merging of the two worlds, the school and the battle. I'm then going to talk about the progress from innocence to experience. And finally, I'm going to talk about the triumph of the female expressed by this girl and her assertive voice in the poem. So please like and subscribe and let's get started. I've got the poem here in front of me, so you should have a copy too. Straight away, we get in the first line this merging of two worlds, the school world and the battlefield. And this, of course, is something very uncomfortable for us. Now, it harks back to a poem by Wilfred Owen, where in his first line, he talks about the passing bells for those who die like cattle. And so here, Dharker is referencing a poem that was written a century before her, referencing the troubled, difficult times of the First World War. And she's bringing this up to date and putting it into the schoolroom. The school bell is a call to battle. Every step to class, a step into the firing line. So she's saying that the girls who are going to school are like the young soldiers that were going over the top in the trenches. They are having to go out into the firing line and they are assaulted because of it. They are bullied and people try to suppress them. Now here again we have a reference to a real life situation where the young Malala was shot on her way to school and prevented from going for education purposes. So here we have a real life situation of a girl being shot on the way to school, merging with the world of those young boys who were in the First World War and were being shot because they signed up and went off to war. So the two worlds merge here, but also coming back to this idea of these children should be in the schoolroom. They're very young and they shouldn't be out having to fight battles. But here, Imtiaz Dharker is telling us that young girls still have to fight battles to have their voices heard and to get an education. The second idea I wanted to talk about in this poem is the journey from innocence to experience. In the first half of this poem, we have reference to the fine skin at the temple, the cheeks still rounded from being 15. This is a face that is untouched by the worries of the world here, an innocent, childlike face. But this is ruined, of course, by the bullet in the head. Now, Malala again was shot by a bullet in the head and suffered very severe injuries from this. And the poem here is very strong, surrendered, surrounded. The child here, the girl here, is the victim. And that sibilance of the surrendered, surrounded, and the way that that's presented in that couplet, in that second stanza, is very oppressive, and she has no escape. She's like a young animal that is caught by hunters and she has no escape. However, she is able to escape with her mind, and this is what the poem is centered around, this idea that one can escape oppression through education and through the imagination. And the bullet cuts a pathway in her mind to an orchard in full bloom. So it's as if the trial that she's going through and the fight that she's going through has enabled her to have an education, to become in bloom, to be humming under the sun. And there are poppies. Now, of course, this is tinged with a reference to the First World War and the poppy fields, but there is also something very positive about the poppies and the apple tree in full bloom. And the girl's imagination, because she has been educated, has led her to be able to escape the physical and move towards a world of imagination. And this is a romantic idea here, a very romantic idea, harking back to the 19th century poets, that one can triumph over oppression with escape through the imagination. And here it seems to be escape through books, escapes into normal experiences, to wear bangles to a wedding, to paint your fingernails, to go to school. Now, on the one hand, these things are quite trivial, the bangles and the fingernails. They are something she wasn't previously allowed to do, but she has become normalised. But of course, to go to school is a fundamental human right, and something which all children should be allowed to do in order to foster their intellect and to become people who are able to fully partake in the world. Okay, lastly, I wanted to talk about the triumph of the female here. And we can see very clearly that this poem is divided into two sections. The moment when she is shot, and then the moment when she wins. And we have the two couplets in the middle of the poem. Surrendered, surrounded, she takes the bullet in the head. That's the lowest moment. But then, this girl has won the right to be ordinary. So those two couplets work in opposition to each other, and the girl has won is a blank statement of fact, and she has triumphed. Now, what I would say is the girl has won because she has been able to educate and use her mind to escape. But also the girl has won here because she had been given a voice. She uses this voice here. She says, bullet, you are stupid. You have failed. You cannot kill a book or the buzzing in it. Now she addresses the bullet in the use of that second person. You have failed. Now maybe she's talking about the oppressive society that tries to oppress women from being allowed an education. But in particular, she's addressing the weapons of war and saying that those weapons have failed. They have failed to quell humanity's instinct for experiment, exploration and learning. And she is saying that as long as we hang on to our imaginations, the bullets and the warfare will fail. Now, at the very end, we have this image of the other girls lining up behind her one by one. They are standing up, and that, of course, is loaded with the idea of standing up for their rights. And they take their places in the front line. Now, I would argue that this ending is very positive in many ways. The girls are swarming and humming like she is in order to stand up and make their points and speak with their voice and get an education. On the other hand, of course, they're taking their places on the front line. So again, we're back in that First World War scenario where young men are killed, others step up and take their place, and it becomes a kind of treadmill. So while I think this is a very hopeful poem in many, many ways, I think that there is also a tinge of doom, and we could go back to Wilfred Owen's poem, The Anthem for Doomed Youth. I recommend you go away and read that and see how that might stimulate some other ideas about this poem. I hope you've enjoyed that explanation. Please like and subscribe, and do visit some of our other videos to help you with this GCSE poetry. That's all for now. See you next time.